This is the Panasonic GH5 II, a hybrid camera for creators like us who create both video and still content. But this one's very video-centric. It shoots at 4K 60 frames per second, full 10-bit, something the previous GH5 couldn't do. It has improved sensor stabilization now to 6.5 stops. It does wireless live streaming to places like YouTube via Wi-Fi. And maybe the thing everybody really wants is improved autofocus. We're gonna take it out and test it. And to really show off that improved autofocus, the 10-25 f1.7 lens, which gives us sort of full frame background blur capabilities, full frame low light capabilities in a micro four thirds package, something we previously had to achieve by using speed boosters and APS-C lenses that always gave us too much flaring and too slow autofocus. So we're gonna take this out and answer the question, has Panasonic finally given us the vlogging camera that we've all been asking for? So I just wanna show the camera I was filming with. That's the Sony a7S III, which costs twice as much as a GH5. Let's watch that again. This is a common focus transition for vloggers doing unboxing or showing off gear, and the Panasonic handled it great. Very, very smooth. It was slower than you might get out of a Canon or Sony, but that could probably be tweaked. I've already found the first flaw. Like the Sony cameras, there are crazy auto exposure fluctuations because it's trying to expose for my face, but thinks my face is different brightnesses as I move it around. So watch how the background flashes here. You could use manual exposure, but that's actually really difficult to set when you're a one-man crew and you're supposed to be in front of the camera, because you have to step towards the camera to make any adjustments. To test out the GH5 II, we decided to vlog a car show. We've been doing YouTube for almost 10 years now, and most of that time we were shooting with a Panasonic GH camera, but we stopped because we got so frustrated that it simply couldn't lock onto our face. We experimented with a Canon, and even though the Canon didn't record at 4K 60, even though the Canon didn't record to 2 card slots, it was more reliable and the end result looked better. So we gave up on Panasonic. And now Panasonic is addressing those concerns. They're giving us bigger, faster micro four thirds lenses that give us a little bit of background blur, and they're improving the autofocus. So I'm excited to see if it works. Yeah, it actually looked great and wasn't distracted by my hand.
Well, there's no car show here. That's a disappointment. So we'll just walk around and make our own car show.
It found focus even with Chelsea's sunglasses on. Nice.
There's a car over here. It's a one-car car show. Oh, this car's powered by used vegetable oil, and it's literally a green car.
This is definitely our worst ever vlog, but the Panasonic is doing great. It is seamlessly and smoothly transitioning focus between Chelsea and whatever subject I'm pointing the camera at. When I zoom, it tracks, and I haven't seen any of that telltale contrast detect focusing. Panasonic, I think you fixed the autofocus.
This is Ocean Beach Park in New London, Connecticut. Nothing is open, but it's great here.
This f1.7 zoom is creating a nice but subtle amount of bokeh. There's just a little bit of subject separation there.
And I know what you're thinking. Connecticut is known for its beaches, Chelsea. No, it's not. Ah, look.
Okay, sometimes the autofocus transitions were still a little too slow.
What's really cool is that everything in Ocean Beach is Art Deco. Look at Renegade 24-hour fitness.
I do miss the ability to slap on a 24 f1.4 full frame lens and really blow out the background like we do in some videos with less attractive backdrops.
And our boardwalk is second to none. It looks like it might be Ipe. Wow. One of the natural wonders of the world.
Shooting directly into the sun, I did manage to make a little bit of flaring, but it's not bad at all. Panasonic added anti-flaring coating to the sensor to stop light from bouncing back off the sensor and into the optics, which was creating a bunch of unnecessary flaring. Also, with the new Panasonic lens, I no longer have to use a speed booster, making it a much cleaner image than we could when we were shooting with the original GH5.
I don't know any real facts about this beach.
Here I shut the aperture down to f16 to create that starburst effect in the sun, and you can see that increased the flaring, but still, the lens is really good quality.
Now let's take a look at that beautiful amusement park I told you about.
The sensor stabilization isn't quite as gimbal-like as the Canon R5 and R6, but it's good, and I think better than the Sony cameras.
Someone took the horses from this carousel.
Here, our sound goes from bad to worse as the receiver for the wireless lav died. Now, I know that's my fault. I'm not a perfect human. I forgot to charge it. Good tech has your back. It reduces the opportunity for human error. On the Sony system, you can connect the wireless lav receiver into the hot shoe where it receives power from the camera, so there's only one battery to charge. The Panasonic user interface makes Sony seem friendly. I'm trying to turn on slow motion recording, which Panasonic calls variable frame rate. You can see it's giving me a misleading error message. It tells me it's the record quality, but that's not accurate. The problem is actually the file format. I have to switch it to move, and now I can turn on variable frame rate and select the high frames per second. Some people enjoy reading a manual so they can master a technically complex gadget. That's not me. I'd like something to work intuitively, and the Panasonic GH5 Mark II is just not that. If you're a perfect human, this will never be a problem. But if you're like me and the user interface gets in the way in the middle of a shoot, you're going to be frustrated with the camera. Sony menus are also awful. The most intuitive camera system is the Canon system. Let's wrap this up with a low light test. I'm at ISO 12800, wide open at f1.7 and 1/60th of a second, the slowest I could go at this frame rate. So you get some sense for what the video quality looks like. Now there's a few ways I could compare this to a full frame camera like the Sony a7S III. I could keep the f-stop number the same, but that wouldn't really make sense because that would give me different amounts of background blur. So I could adjust for the crop factor and shoot it at f3.5. So let's see what that looks like when both the sensors are getting the same amount of light and producing similar results. This is the Sony a7S III at full frame equivalent settings. So the same shutter speed, 1/60th, but f3.5, twice the aperture, and 4 times the ISO to ISO 51200. This comparison is valid if you need to get a specific amount of depth of field for the look that you're going for. But what if you just want to open it up and put the fastest native lens possible on there? Let's find out what happens when I dial this down to f1.4. At f1.4, a similar f-stop number to what we had on the Panasonic, the Sony, with its bigger full-frame sensor, is actually gathering about 4 times more light. So same number, but a big difference in the image quality that you'll see, and you'll probably also see a lot more background separation as the bigger aperture blurs the background out more. And this is a look you could not get with a Panasonic. You could put on the 12mm f1.4, but that's a full frame equivalent of 24mm f2.8. So, okay, both cameras suck at eye detect autofocus in low light backlit conditions, so you'll switch to manual focus. But the Sony full frame image quality definitely looks noticeably better. In summary, I gotta say, congrats Panasonic. You've done it. You've made the depth-from-defocus DFD contrast-based algorithm that we all kind of had doubts in. You made it work good enough, at least with this particular lens. And I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this to shoot instead of a Canon or Sony camera, especially because those Canon and Sony cameras, the full frame ones, are going to come in a lot more expensive but not give significantly better results unless you get to the point where you're shooting primes. Compared to the Canon R6, it's an amazing vlogging camera with incredible sensor stabilization and those amazing RF lenses, but the Canon R6 is $2,600. The Canon 15 to 35 f2.8, which is the most similar lens to this, is $2,200. So now you're looking at $4,800, a significant jump up from the $3,500 for this. And you give up unlimited recording time, and you give up recording video to 2 card slots, something that we consider to be a must-have. We've been shooting with a Sony a7S III, and it's fantastic, but it's $3,500 just for the body. And then the most similar lens, the 16 to 35 f2.8, is another $2,000. So now you're looking at $5,500, a big jump from $3,500. Sony's strength compared to Panasonic has always been the video autofocus, but we find when we shut the aperture down that video autofocus on the Sony is no longer reliable. The Panasonic actually did better when we weren't shooting wide open. The Sony still has some advantages though. Most notably, the mic gets power through the hot shoe and transmits audio through the hot shoe. So that's a couple fewer points of failure, something that I know would save the day many times for us. Also, the Sony, being a full frame camera, has access to big fast lenses, and you saw the effect that that has on both the background blur and the low light performance. And that's something Panasonic could do if they were to manufacture, say, a 12mm f/0.7 for the Micro Four Thirds system, but they're probably not going to do that. And so I wholeheartedly recommend the Panasonic GH5 Mark II to you if you don't need that thick bokeh, if you don't need super low light performance, and if you are okay with remembering to charge your microphone and you don't mind having that audio cable on there. Of course, there's lots of advantages to the GH5 that I didn't talk about, like it's got waveforms and vector scopes, and it can record video both internally and externally to a field monitor at the same time. And there's a lot of these features for like serious filmmakers, but I don't use those in my day-to-day recording career, so I'll let somebody else talk about those features. Be sure to subscribe for more reviews, lots of tips for both videographers and photographers, and if you have any follow-up comments or questions, add a comment down below. Thanks.